All right, here comes the probably difficult part of your essay is writing your counterclaim. And so we have been working on our essay where you've chosen a position, either why Shakespeare should be taught in schools or not. And so your counterclaim is just the opposite of what it is that you've chosen to write about. So, for example, if you have said that Shakespeare should be written or taught in schools, in this paragraph, you're going to present at least one argument for the opposite side. That I understand that Shakespeare is important and should be taught in schools. However, and then give a reason why it should not. That's what a counterclaim is. So, a counterclaim, it is the opposite of the original claim. So, whatever it is your support is, it's going to be the opposite. You're not developing it as much as you've developed your original claim. It's just giving one particular point. So a couple weeks ago when I had you guys do 3 reasons for both sides, that was the reason why I did that. So you technically already have a reason. All you have to do is go back and look at what it is that you've written in your worksheets, and use one of those positions. Using a counterclaim really is important because it creates a stronger argument for you to support what it is that you've already said. And it's providing an alternative to the question. It shows that you kind of know what you're talking about and that you have merit, meaning that it's important and what it is that you're choosing to say makes sense. Kind of like when you say something and your parents or your teachers say, well, why? You got to explain it. This helps, again, to strengthen that argument. So your reader is more likely to pay attention, because you are able to see both sides or both viewpoints, and they take your position a little bit more seriously because you've provided evidence of both. So when you're writing an argumentative essay, which we are doing, you need to acknowledge the validity or the valid points of both sides. So the other side of the argument, which is your counterclaim. Otherwise, you kind of come off sounding like it says here, narrow-minded, and that is a lot less effective. And people don't want to listen to you because it sounds as though you're not really, you don't know what you're talking about. So rather than making your paper weak or having it poor, a good counterclaim is going to strengthen your essay by showing that you have really considered both sides of the issue before coming to your own particular claim. And again, we've done that already. When you look back at that worksheet, couple of worksheets that we did a couple weeks ago, when we were looking at both sides of the argument, you created reasons for both sides. So you have thoughtfully considered both sides. You have read articles that support both sides. And so now this is your opportunity or point in the paper where you show that particular counterclaim. So here are some phrases that you can use to introduce and use in your paragraph. So things like, you've already given your 3 reasons and now you want to produce your counterclaim. So you would say, on the other hand, Shakespeare should not be taught in schools because blah, blah, blah. Or some people say, and then whatever, it is that you say. So like if you were using, although Shakespeare should be taught in schools, comma, some people say that he shouldn't, and then you would give evidence to that. You can say, instead of that, admittedly, some people say that Shakespeare shouldn't, and then you give your reasons. Phrases to address the original claim. So you could use however, nevertheless, on the other hand, and then to conclude your paragraph. And there's going to be an example that kind of shows all of these phrases that you can use, because you remember, you never want to use I or what you don't want to say I think or something like that. So these are the types of phrases and words that you should be using in your counterclaim paragraph. So more transitions that you can use, in saying that I believe that, or not I believe, but Shakespeare should be taught in schools. However, one viewpoint is blah, blah, blah. Many people think, or many people support, or many people argue, or many people claim. So these are all good points that are going over the opposite side of your argument. You can start with, on the other hand, Shakespeare should not be taught in schools because blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to give your evidence from your articles. There is some support for the idea that Shakespeare should not be taught in schools because, again, We're focusing in on if this paper was about that Shakespeare should. Granted, some might argue, or granted, some might support, some might believe. So these are all great words that you can use as transitions. And you don't, again, since you're not using I, you don't say, I want to argue. You could just say, it could be argued that, and then state your position. So here's an example. Even though the paragraph doesn't use a citation or who the article is from. So in orange here, these are some transition words that I've highlighted in orange so that you can see that. Here is the counterclaim in yellow. Here is the evidence to support that in green. And then blue is their original position. So on the other hand, so their position, I guess before we even start reading this, is that music is not a threat to society. So in their paper, they've been talking this whole time about how some rock lyrics are a threat to society. On the other hand, some people may say that rock music contains lyrics that are both provocative and rebellious. This viewpoint makes sense because in the article, and you would state the article here, it states that, and here's your quote, and you would insert your citation here. However, rock music itself does not make a teenager rebel against society simply because the article says that the average teenager does not take it seriously, concerns themselves more with the musical value rather than the inner meanings of the lyrics. Therefore, even though lyrics in rock and roll show hints of anarchy and social rebellion, it is not a threat to society. So again, that gives their position more validity because they're kind of counterclaiming, again, what it is that their focus is. So this is how your example paragraph of your counterclaim should really look. But again, remember to make sure that you still use your tagline in the article by so-and-so and such, and then make sure that you give your citation. So your example of, or your submission of your counterclaim should have your transitions, give your counterclaim, make sure that you support it from one of the articles. Then you're going to state your position again and have a concluding sentence that gives that particular counterclaim. All right, and so hopefully that will help. You need to make sure that you look back at the example, that you look back at some of the transitions, and again, what a counterclaim actually is before writing and submitting yours. If you have any questions, please make sure that you ask, and then also submit it on time so that I can look at it, make comments and corrections for you before we need to submit this next week for our final essay. Okay, good luck.